The Democrats need a plan, and fast. So here we go. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, here's the plan from one Adam Jentleson, who is a former deputy chief of staff for former Senator Harry Reid, who was the Senate Majority Leader for way too long. He basically says that going into the confirmation hearings for whoever's going to be nominated by the president to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away within the last week or so as we record this, that the Democrats need a plan. And he pretty much acknowledges throughout the entire piece in the New York Times that the plan doesn't have as its objective to stop the confirmation of the nominee. In fact, the whole purpose of this plan is to prove that the process itself is a farce and that the process and the nominee are illegitimate. And then that sets the table for a raft of reforms that they plan to introduce when the Democrats take control of the Senate and Joe Biden is president of the United States. And maybe I'll be there to take your hand. Maybe I'll be there to share the land that they'll be giving away when we all live together. So you hippies, So here's the plan, guys. And Stephen Green, I'll give you the first. It's all procedural, okay? Which makes a lot of sense if you were deputy chief of staff for a senator. And there are several elements to it to delay the process. First of all, a lot of the Senate business happens through something called unanimous consent agreements, which don't really get votes. It's just like if nobody objects, then they go through. Well, if one senator objects, then they don't. And then they have to deal with it. So one of his strategies is object to every unanimous consent agreement. The second strategy is force Republicans to supply a quorum. Again, a lot of Senate business happens when there's not really a quorum present. But if one member of the Senate should say that he wants to note the absence of a quorum, then they have to establish whether a quorum is present, in which case they've got to call in at least 51 senators. And to supply a quorum, the other strategy is make sure that the Republicans have to supply almost every last bit of that quorum themselves. So, Steve, that's just the beginning of it. There's more to it than that. But what do you think of the idea of using the rules of the Senate in order to obstruct a process that you think is illegitimate?
Well, it's kind of how the Senate was designed. It was originally constructed. The Senate was supposed to be the place where bad ideas went to die. And I kind of miss those days. Using procedure, I mean, parliamentary trickery is as old as the first parliament. That's just a fact of political life, and there's really no changing it. What it does, though, is it shows exactly what the left is capable of, because they will smear or destroy any institution that they can't take over. This is what the left does. Full stop. It's their MO. Bill Clinton won in 1992 because there was a strong third-party contender in Ross Perot, and he won it again in 96. Possibly for the same reason, but clearly wouldn't have been running for re-election in 96 if it hadn't been for Ross Perot in 1992. And you didn't hear Republicans saying, well, we need to introduce a constitutional amendment or state laws to prevent third-party candidates from running. We need to keep this to the two established political parties that actually have a chance in this field. No, we went, well, crap. We got the tar kicked out of us. We got to do better next time. And that's what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. If you lose by the rules, you don't say, well, we're going to change the rules. What the Democrats are proposing to do, not just in trying to delay Senate business in this case, and I would remind you that every delay in this Senate business is another delay in getting a COVID relief bill through and all the rest of the business the Senate is supposed to be taking care of. The real tell is what they plan to do if they win the election. Already there's talk of packing the courts.
I'm going to get to Bill about that.
Oh, you're going to get to Bill at the after stuff. Okay.
Yes.
Then I'll stick to the pre stuff. Thank you. We know what they're capable of. We know what they're going to do. They think they put an asterisk by Kavanaugh's name for the rest of his life with these unsubstantiated allegations. They'll do whatever they can do with Trump's nominee, whoever she turns out to be. Probably we'll find out on Friday.
So, that phrase, they want to hang an asterisk around the president's nominee. That's sounds brutal, You're getting some punctuation hung around you. Among their other plans are to boycott the confirmation hearings themselves. Not that will have any effect whatsoever, other than you don't want a bunch of Democrats hanging around the confirmation hearings lending their credibility to the proceedings. And so another way of making it look illegitimate. But Bill Whittle, ultimately, when the Democrats take over the Senate and hold their majority in the House and win the White House with President Joe Biden, these are the structural reforms that this guy wants Democrats to commit to now, and that they will do when they get in office. Because he says the big problem with this country is that the Senate is dominated by a handful of white conservatives. A white conservative minority is imposing its will upon a diverse majority in the country. And so, number one, he wants to get rid of the filibuster. Number two, as Steve mentioned, pack the court, maybe bump the Supreme Court up from 9 to 15 members. Maybe add some age or term limits onto Supreme Court justices. And finally, and this is probably more structural than any of them, invite the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico to become states, because after all, they've been disenfranchised and they need to have their rights as well. Bill, this is, if they announce this plan, if Democrats were to say, this is what we plan to do once you give us the Senate majority and elect Joe Biden to the presidency, does this help their chances?
No. Now, I think, look, if the situation was reversed, all of these things like having somebody object to every one of these, unanimous consent things, that's a fair tactic. That's and it's a fair tactic to try and stall the actual appointment till after the election, and do everything you can through legal and constitutional means to stall it till after the election. We may not like it, but that is a fair tactic, and that's what politics is. But that's not what he's talking about. That's part of what he's talking about. What he's really talking about is destroying the credibility of the nominee, and what they're saying there is, we're going to destroy Americans' faith in their government and each other and themselves in order to minimize the amount of damage that this person could do in the future, because Donald Trump is fulfilling not only his constitutional prerogative, but his constitutional obligation. He is the person who basically nominates an appointee for the Supreme Court. And so anything that they do that is part of actual so-called parliamentary procedures is fair game as far as I'm concerned. But as far as the business of delegitimizing the choice, that ship has sailed. Now, you said he was Harry Reid's chief of staff. He wasn't his moral or ethical advisor.
Reid never had one of those.
I'm not sure that position exists. Yeah.
No, he absorbed it from Reid. It just came through it osmosis like one of those nicotine patches. So this is the politics of Harry Reid. It's kind of interesting and fun and kind of cool, isn't it? That all of this stuff is happening because Harry Reid decided to break with over a century's worth of tradition and use the nuclear option to get a cheap vote that he wanted. And all of this is coming back to bite him now. So look, I'm really kind of at this we're going to go out and win one for the Gipper kind of thing. And I'm not joking either. I'm serious about this. I really am. I say, we get all of these Republicans together, and if they have to live in the Senate for the next 3 days or 3 weeks or whatever it takes, if you have to camp out there, if we have 51 guys there the whole time, we push it through, we get the vote, and you say to these guys, we're doing this for Neil. This one is for Brett. This is for Brett Kavanaugh and what they did to him. And we are going to show them that kind of character assassination has consequences. And I think that ought to be the motto, is that this one's for Brett, this one's for Brett, this one's for Brett, this one's for Brett.
Associate Justice Brett. That we need never forget that Brett Kavanaugh is actually on the Supreme Court.
Correct.
So yeah, it's interesting because that strategy that Bill talked about would work probably at any other time earlier in the year. Right now, there are only 13 work days as we record this, 13 Senate work days that are currently scheduled because we're at the end of a campaign process. There are more Republican senators whose seats are at risk than Democrats. And so Republicans really want to be in their home states and campaigning and, doing those things that they do. So to make a decision to be there for those quorum calls and supply that quorum, because the Democrats won't, is to make a decision that your time is better spent in Washington, D.C., fighting the people's fight for a constitutionalist Supreme Court justice than it is back in your home state, going around glad-handing at pork fries or whatever they do these days. Although I don't think there's any glad handing allowed anymore. So that's a calculated risk.
Or frying.
That's right. or mountain oysters or whatever they do. So that would be a tough call. And I'm with Bill on this. I think that, the Democrats have every right to use the rules of the Senate in ways that are legitimate, even if they seem harassing and obnoxious to the people who are trying to accomplish something. They can do that. What has me more concerned is going forward, the idea of essentially intimidating the conservatives and the Supreme Court itself. I mean, we remember that the court kind of backed off after Franklin Roosevelt offered to, or suggested that he was going to pack that court. And so they became a lot more compliant with his wishes when he threatened that. And I think that basically saying that you're going to expand that number is the progressives doubling down on the idea that they can't win their agenda in the legislature, that they need to do it in the courts, and the only way to do that is to pack the court. I really don't care if they get rid of the filibuster or not. Frankly, a majority vote was the way the framers envisioned it to work, and I really don't like the kind of the privilege that exists in many cases in the Senate, where one senator can be an obstacle to everything. Although I do agree with Steve that it was the idea of the Senate was to be a cooling saucer, as Washington once said, to cool off the hot ideas coming from the Democratic House. And then inviting D.C. and Puerto Rico to be states, those are just shameless plays to bring in a load of Democratic voters and representatives and to be able to swing the country that way. There's a specific reason why the District of Columbia is not a state. And that is, at the framing of the Constitution, that was how that should be. If Puerto Rico needs to become a state, that's fine. I think we're going to find out we have more burden than opportunity there at this point. But I'm not against reforming the process. And I'm not against these harassment techniques to do all this. I just dream of the day when the august Senate is a place of deliberation and serious consideration and rivalry, yes, but in a way that is respectful and dignified and reflective of the highest ideals of this land and the constitutional processes that should govern it. So to me, watching this is just like senators getting down in the mud and acting like school children because they can't get what they want. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.